Leslie was shaking me lightly. It was very annoying. I just wanted to sleep for 5 more minutes. I groaned. "Leave me alone," I said with a groggy voice. "Kid, wake up," a man said. That wasn't Leslie. My eyes shot wide. I was in the workshop, lying on top of random pieces of suits, and Mr. Stark was hovering over me, trying to get me to open my eyes. "What the hell?" I whispered to myself. "What happened?" "Ultron," he said solemn, eyeing me as if trying to telepathically find out if I was all right. I looked at the workshop. It was wrecked, and I instantly remembered the red eyes and deep voice. "Oh," was all I could say. He helped me up and we went to the next floor to the lab. I grabbed his arm awkwardly for support and held my head with the other hand. I was seriously afraid that it was going to fall. It hurt like hell. "Kira," Dr. Banner said when he saw me. "Are you all right?" "Yeah," I lied, falling down onto a chair. I rested on the back and looked at the ceiling. "Just make the room stop." "What happened?" he asked. "The integration was successful," I said, looking at one of the computers, but they were all turned off. "But he had some ideas of his own," I added, confused. "Who?" someone asked. "Ultron," Mr. Stark said. He was looking at me with guilt on his eyes. I followed the other voice and found Steve Rogers. I hadn't noticed that he was in the room, but on a second look, I realized everybody was there. Rogers, Agent Romanoff and Barton, Maria Hill, Dr. Banner, and Mr. Stark. Even James Rhodes, aka War Machine, a friend of Mr. Stark and honorific Avenger. There was also a woman I recognized as Dr. Cho, a Korean scientist that had come to New York to work with Mr. Stark on something. Dr. Banner turned on one of the computers and started messing around with it. "All our work is gone," he said. "Ultron cleared out. Used the internet as an escape hatch." "Shit." "Ultron," Rogers repeated. "He's been in everything," Agent Romanoff said from another computer. "Files, surveillance. Probably knows more about us than we know about each other." "He's in your files. He's on the internet," James Rhodes thought out loud. "What if he decides to access something a little more exciting?" "What? Like nuclear codes?" I suggested, remembering then my brief interaction with Ultron. "Could he do that?" Rogers asked. I shrugged, but my shoulders hurt. "If he's on the internet," I whispered, "he only needs an exposed network in time. A lot of it." Mr. Stark looked at me alarmed. "Or not that much," he said. "Where is it?" I touched one of the pockets of my jacket. It was still there. I sighed, relieved. "I have it," I said. "In my wallet, like always." "What are you talking about?" Rogers asked. "The drive," I explained. "You carry that around?" he asked, outraged. "It's safe with me. No one knows I have it," I defended myself. "Jarvis knew, so Ultron knows," Mr. Stark said, absent-minded. "He didn't know where I had it," I said, remembering the conversation I had with the robot. It was coming back to me. "Did he ask for it?" Mr. Stark asked. I nodded. "He said he would give me 24 hours to give it to him or else." I trailed off, trying to remember more. "Or else what?" Rogers asked. "I don't know. He bitch-slapped me to another dimension," I said, rubbing the left side of my face. "He told me to tweet him when I was ready," I added. Somehow, that was the part that confused me the most. "We can't give him the drive," Dr. Banner said. "It would make things easier for him." "Things like accessing nuclear codes," Mr. Rhodes deadpan said. "Look, we need to make some calls, assuming we still can." "Nukes?" Agent Romanoff said, not convinced. He said he wanted us dead. He didn't say dead, Rogers pointed out. He said extinct. He also said he killed somebody, Agent Barton said. But there wasn't anyone else in the building, Maria Hill reasoned. Yes, there was, I suddenly said. Leslie. I looked at Mr. Stark looking for something. A signal, permission, some form of reassurance. Something. He seemed to have been hit with the same realization. I didn't wait any longer. I just jumped up and ran to the elevator. The short ride to our floor seemed to take years. When the doors finally opened, I flew around the apartment. Leslie! No answer. Leslie! I arrived to her bedroom. It was empty, but her bed was crowned by a message on the wall written in black oil. 24 hours. Or else, I finally understood. He was planning on killing Leslie. I stared at the message for God knows how long, thinking about what I should do. What was more important? The drive or Leslie? The drive had gotten me out of trouble before. It had made my life easier. But Leslie, as annoying as she was my friend. Did that mean I should give the drive to Ultron? It was the easiest way to get Leslie back without her getting hurt. But if Ultron got a hold of the drive, he would be able to access so many agencies around the world. He would carry out whatever twisted plan he had in a matter of seconds instead of days. The drive meant he had a big rock on his way. If I gave it to him, whatever he had planned could come sooner. Extinction. That's what he had said. I didn't want that to come sooner. Oh God. But Leslie, what was I supposed to do? Was that one person more important than the rest of humanity? I decided to head upstairs. Maybe Mr. Stark had come up to a solution. Maybe I didn't have to think who's dead I wanted to delay more. My friends or the rest of the world's. Fuck. This wouldn't be happening if Leslie had been at the party. What the hell? Mr. Stark had invited her, so why wasn't she at the party? The party, where I should have been. Shit. She must have felt so lonely at the stupid party, and I wasn't there with her. I was in the stupid lab working on a kill robot. God, how could I be such an idiot? The second I entered the lab and saw Mr. Stark, I exploded. I went straight to him and pushed him. The whole room tensed up. Why wasn't she with you? I demanded. She said she had to wake up early, he said, raising his hands in surrender. She went to sleep. He took her, I yelled. He took her and he'll kill her unless I give him the drive. You can't give him the drive, Roger said. Of course I can't, I snapped. I was on the verge of crying, but I held those little bastards off. But what else can I do? We'll find her, Mr. Stark said, putting his hands on my shoulders. How? Without Jarvis, we're practically blind, I said. We'll find her, he repeated. I sighed and looked around the room. Only Mr. Stark and Rogers remained. The rest of the Avengers must have scattered to try to find any clues as to where Ultron had gone. But something else was missing. Where's the scepter? I asked. Did Thor take it back to Asgard? No, Mr. Stark replied. A Legionnaire controlled by Ultron took it. Thor tried to find it, but he shook his head. This is great, I said, defeated. This is so fucking great. Roger shot me a look, warning me not to talk like that. But I didn't care. Why would I? Who would? It seemed extinction was getting closer. I was in my room with my laptop. I was exploring threads that talked about conspiracy theories involving AI. Normally, they were pretty much dead. But the last 3 hours they had been blowing up. Ultron was everywhere. Robotics labs, weapons facilities, jet propulsion labs. There were reports of metallic androids coming in and emptying the place all over the world. I sighed, desperate. Ultron had help. It wasn't just the Legionnaire that had escaped with the scepter, and the one that had taken Leslie. He seemed to have multiplied. I tried thinking where he could have gotten the pieces to build more bodies, but the possibilities were infinite. There was no way to shrink the list without being noticed by Ultron. And I was afraid that, if he saw I was taking the time to try to find him, he would do something to Leslie before the time actually ended. I closed all the tabs in desperation and stared at my home screen. It was a fan art of an anime that I had watched long ago. I hadn't even liked it that much. But the picture was minimalistic. I liked it at the time because it didn't feel cluttered. The lonely folder called Porn held my attention for a second. Should I give Rogers those files? I had had some breakthroughs in my missing person investigation, and I knew that he was stuck. Maybe I should help him. Now that the world was ending, it seemed like a good time. I shook my head. Eventually, I thought. There was no point in putting more shit on his plate. We had enough with Skynet trying to kill us all. I closed my laptop and took it with me upstairs. The Avengers were gathering around the lab once more. Anything new? I asked, sitting down. Rogers passed the tablet to Mr. Stark. A message, Rogers said. Ultron killed Strucker. One less bad guy from the list of people that want the damn drive. That's good, right? Someone died, Kira, Rogers reminded me. Have some respect. And he did a Banksy at the crime scene just for us, Mr. Stark said, not minding Rogers. I gestured towards Mr. Stark while looking at Rogers, but he just sighed defeated, to which I smirked. I guessed he thought Mr. Stark was not the perfect example for the point he had tried to convey to me. I rose my head a little, trying to take a peek at the image. Mr. Stark saw me and turned off the tablet, so I couldn't see it. I frowned. Why would he do that? This is a smokescreen, Agent Romanoff said. Why send a message when you've just given a speech? Strucker knew something that Ultron wanted us to miss, Rogers said. Yeah, I bet he... She trailed off while looking at the computer monitor. Yep, everything we had on Strucker has been erased. Mr. Stark stood up. Not everything. We had boxes and boxes of physical files. There were more than 15, and that was only on Strucker. Known associates, Rogers said, getting one of the files from a box. Well, Strucker had a lot of friends. I took one of the files. It was an average Hydra agent that had been arrested by S.H.I.E.L.D. a couple of years back. It said he had worked under Strucker for 10 years, but there wasn't anything notable on the file. Where would this guy be now? I checked the general information on the first page and found my answer in big red letters. Deceased. I set the file aside. That guy wasn't going to be helping us now. Well, these people are all horrible, Dr. Banner said, skimming over the file he had taken. Wait, I know that guy, Mr. Stark said. Dr. Banner passed him the photo he was looking at, and he analyzed it and nodded. From back in the day. He operates off the African coast. Black Market Arms. Rogers gave him an accusing look. Of course, the perfect soldier would look at any of us that way from up high on his moral ground. He was the poster child for pedantic. There are conventions, all right? Mr. Stark defended himself. You meet people. I didn't sell him anything. He passed the picture around. Under it, on small letters, the name Ulysses Clow could be read. He was talking about finding something new. A game changer. It was all very Ahab. I frowned. Moby Dick? Was that Moby Dick? This, Thor said, pointing at something on the picture. We all tried to get a closer look. Thor was right. The man had something on his neck. It's a tattoo, Mr. Stark said as he frowned. I don't think he had it. No, those are tattoos, Thor corrected, pointing elsewhere. This is a brand. Dr. Banner looked for the symbol on the computer. Stark Industries had a part of the system, a private one, dedicated to databases for the Avengers. One of those included symbols from all kinds of things. Evil corporations, references to literature and art, other cultures all over the world. When he found it, he jumped a little in excitement. Yeah, it's a word in an African dialect meaning thief, he trailed off, in a much less friendly way. What dialect? Rogers asked. The doctor squinted at the computer and gave it a try. Wakanda. Wakanda. For God's sake, Dr. Banner. You're a doctor. I thought. Read like one. For God's sake, Dr. Banner. You're a doctor, I thought. Read like one. If this guy got out of Wakanda with some of their trade goods, Mr. Stark started. He clearly recognized the place. I thought your father said he got the last of it, Rogers asked him. They were the only two on the loop. I darted my eyes between the two of them with absolutely no clue of what they were talking about. I don't follow. Dr. Banner said what we were all thinking. What comes out of Wakanda? The strongest metal on Earth, Mr. Stark said, looking at the shield of Captain America. Vibranium, Agent Romanoff, who had remained quiet during the conversation, focusing instead on other files, said. Shit, I whispered and opened my laptop. If this Ulysses Clow had gotten hold of some vibranium and Ultron reached him. If Ultron used vibranium to build himself a new body, he could become indestructible. How could we stop him then? How the hell would I be able to save Leslie? Where is this guy now? Rogers asked Mr. Stark. South Africa, I said. All eyes turned to me. He has his phone number on his website. I just pinged it. He has a website, Agent Romanoff said. Deep web, I said. I thought we weren't supposed to use the internet, Rogers said. Technology sometimes seemed to faze him. I'm using Tor, I said. He won't know it's me for a while. Enough time to get there. Okay. Rogers nodded once, strangely convinced. Suit up, people. Everybody left. I went to my room and got comfortable clothes and ran upstairs to the Quinjet. Mr. Stark was already there, carrying the suitcase that contained the Iron Man suit. He saw me and frowned. What are you doing? He asked. I'm coming with you, I said in a matter-of-fact tone. But you're not, he said, matching me. I stopped. Ultron has Leslie, I reminded him. He won't take her there, he retorted. Of course he won't, I said. I wasn't that naive. But I will do everything I can to bring the bastard down. You need a good programmer. After all, Ultron is just a buggy program. And if he gets away, at least I can try to tag him. He shut up and set his jaw. You don't leave the Quinjet, he warned. I smiled and took some steps towards the plane, but he grabbed my arm, stopping me. He got to my eye level, making me look straight at him. You don't leave the Quinjet, he repeated, serious. I matched his stoic face and nodded. He released me and I went inside the plane, sitting down on one of the folding gray seats. Then something hit me, making me smile slyly. I was going on a mission with the Avengers.